Good evening. It's great to see everyone here. If you could stand with us, we're going to start with singing I Am Resolved. Be seated.
Good evening. Welcome to our Sunday evening service. It's good to see those that are here. This is the first night of kids' play practice. So be with or be praying for the volunteers that are working with the kids to present the Christmas play. Can you believe we're preparing for Christmas? Is that a woo? I didn't get one for missions conference, so I'm just kidding. Yeah, Christmas season is almost here. Gather friends and family dear. We'll stop right there. No. Yeah, no, such a poet. The seniors game night will be on Friday night. Make sure that you are reminded to be there if you'd like to. If you have questions on what the seniors game night is, you can see Larry Ritchie. Or if you'd like to ask if you qualify as a senior, if you're asking the question, the answer is probably yes. But do plan on being there if you identify as such. And enjoy the fellowship, the food, the time there. So there's that. And the men's shooting activity is coming up in just a couple weeks, so plan on being there if you are interested in that. You know, I didn't mention this morning, but we do a breakfast, and that, even if you don't want to go and shoot anything, you can come eat breakfast, hang out with us there. It's usually a good time of fellowship. Last year, maybe the food wasn't as great as it had been in previous years. A little bit of a down year, but typically the food is fantastic. So either way, I know I'm really selling it right now, but plan on being there. All right, Deuteronomy chapter number 23. Deuteronomy chapter 23. We looked at that, I guess it was 3 weeks ago. It's been a little while, but Deuteronomy chapter 23, in it we find 8 various laws. And I don't know, I guess we could just go through a few of them. Maybe we'll go through all of them. But does anyone remember any of the 8 laws that we looked at in the chapter? Go ahead, Larry. Just pick one. Your favorite law. Yes. And do you remember what that meant? I'm going to put you on the spot. Exactly. It's more of a political appointment is what most people believe the congregation of the Lord meant. And the ones prohibited were those that were made eunuchs, those that were illegitimate children, and those that were Amorites or Moabites were prohibited. When you get into the treatment of the Transjordan tribes, you do find that an Edomite is able to, but 3 generations removed. So good. There's one. Does anybody remember another one? Yes, Karen. Cleanliness is next to godliness. What? That's true. Larry is calling you on that. He said that is not in the Bible. Yes, she is. I was going to say, I think you're talking about keeping purity, cleanliness in the war camp. And there's one really humorous aspect of that, and that is your weapon should have a shovel on it. And you can imagine what that shovel is for. We'll end right there. It's interesting that was your favorite of the laws. Digging a hole for your, yeah. All right, good. No, we're on fire. We're doing great. Two laws, and they've all been from chapter 23. We've got 6 more to choose from. If anybody has another one, yes, Phyllis. Yes, the law of the vow. And yes, that's the second from last one, verse 21 through verse 23. If you make a vow to God, you better keep it. And I think that is something that you can see that would be really important even today. That's a great one. Any others? We'll see. We'll go back to you. I know you're ready. Let's see. Anybody else? Karen. Yes, you can eat what you want from a field, but you cannot harvest it to take it home in order to, basically you can't go to your neighbor's crop and just cut down a bunch and say, just need something to eat. And I don't think I said this. I think somebody said this to me after the service. Maybe it was Chris Brown. I can't remember who it was, but maybe one of the ways to think about this is they did not have McDonald's in the ancient world, as surprising as that may sound. So if you needed sustenance as you were traveling about, you would be able to go into your neighbor's field, someone else's field, and to get something that you need to eat to be able to continue on your journey. I don't remember who said that to me, but somebody said that to me, and I thought that was a really good way. Maybe I said it. I don't even remember. Maybe it was me. Who knows? What? Yes, you can eat in, but you can't take out. That is a great summarization of that law. It's like when you go to a buffet, right? You go to Golden Corral. Everybody remembers those days, the good old days of the slimy, slippery spoons. The good days, right? You could go to Golden Corral, you can eat whatever you want, eat to your full, eat past that, but you don't get a to-go box. You can't take any home with you. So that's a good way to looking at it. All right, do we have another one? All right, go ahead, Larry. That's true, and that specifically deals with temple cultic sexual worship, which is prohibited. But obviously, both a male and a female would not be allowed. That's a good one. Let's look at verse 15 and 16. That's one that I'd really like to highlight. Does anybody remember what that one was? Sorry? Yes. And what are you not supposed to do with an escaped servant? Turn them back in. If there's a runaway slave, you are not supposed to turn them back in. And I wanted to kind of highlight this one in particular because what I see a lot in Deuteronomy chapter 24 is fair treatment laws. And obviously, we'll look at that in just a little bit. I'm not going to go ahead and preach chapter 24 while I'm here. But what's interesting as you look at some of the laws that we're going to see specifically in chapter 24, it's really about like, just be a decent neighbor, be a decent human being. And we've seen that tendency through many of the laws, but including this prohibition against oppressing runaway slaves. So we also had don't charge interest to the countrymen. We had the treatment of the Transjordian tribes, which is different than how they are to treat the ones that they're told to kill completely. And I think that is all of them. So, yes. Sorry? The Hindi? I can't hear you. Usury. Did I forget that? Yes, usury is in there, and I just saw it. Oh, yeah. Verse number 19 and verse 20, don't charge interest to countrymen. Don't lend upon usury to your brother, but you can to the foreigner, the stranger. So, all right. Well, I think that summarizes chapter 23, and we'll look at 24 here in just a little while. And I think we will have some continuity in Deuteronomy going forward over the next few weeks. So, hopefully, we remember what we talk about tonight. That'd always be ideal. But we're doing a great job, and I'm enjoying Deuteronomy. This is the monotonous section, a lot of laws. But when we look at these laws, one, we realize they're for the nation of Israel, not for us. But two, we can also understand what's important to God and what He wants His people to be like. And through that, I think we can derive some application to ourselves. All right, well, we will have the men come forward for the offering. And because I think that's next. Yes. Yeah, no, actually, absolutely. Ushers come down after the question time. So this is the time. And Mike, if you would, lead us as we pray over the offering.
Please stand with me. We'll continue singing with All the Way My Savior Leads Me.
If you have your Bibles with you, if you would, take them and turn with me to Deuteronomy chapter 24. Deuteronomy 24. So then, Deuteronomy chapter 24, we find a list of 7 laws, ranging from laws on divorce, dealing with leprosy, lending, claiming back, a prohibition against stealing, treating employees well, not imputing penal punishment to children, and then laws for fair treatment for foreigners, fatherless, and widows. And I think as you see kind of the main topics laid out, that there is a theme here about taking care of others, especially those that are down and out. About the sneeze? I'll check it. Well, Roger's in here. All right. I haven't sneezed once today. See? All right, we'll just try to see what happens. All right, verse number 1. When a man hath taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanliness in her, let him write a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house. Right there off the bat, we see we're talking about divorce and the Deuteronomy law. Now, I'll be honest, I started to get on a rabbit trail and spending way too much time on divorce in the Bible than I probably should have in preparation of this message. There's an interesting thing that you can see when you compare divorce in the Old Testament to divorce in the New Testament. And I think most famously, we have Jesus being asked about divorcement. And in that, he says that basically the Synoptic Gospels have some variation of Jesus and his response. I think Matthew has it twice there in the book. But basically, he says that divorce was given because of our weakness and our sinfulness. And some don't give this, but some do. But in some of the cases, Jesus gives it only in a situation of adultery. Why are you laughing? My wife is laughing. I'm talking about divorcing, and I'm a little concerned, to be honest. I just don't know what's going on. Ben, would you be concerned if you're talking about... He doesn't even know where his wife is, so... You should know I am way too ADD for that this evening. So hold it together, Mackenzie. Just a few more minutes. All right. One thing I found interesting is when you look at Jesus in the Gospels and him being asked this question, there's a lot of study about what exactly was happening, what was Jesus trying to accomplish, and also what does this law mean for the nation of Israel. First of all, we have to remember one thing. What is Deuteronomy? It's laws for who? Let's say it together. 1, 2, 3. Israelites, right? The nation of Israel. So within the nation of Israel, it would make sense that there would be regulation or laws about divorce, being divorced, and how to do that, and when it's appropriate, when it's not. And that's what we find here. This doesn't mean that God is okay with divorce. This doesn't mean that God is prohibiting divorce. All that we have here is a law about divorce for the nation of Israel. Now, the problem that you have is obviously the Jewish people held to the Mosaic law and were committed to that law. You're still smiling. I just can't even look at you right now. Yeah, hide behind Brother Ray. That'd be a better option. Every time I lose my train of thought here. Okay, so the Jewish people followed the laws and held to them. And what's interesting, especially after the temple's destroyed, they have to reinterpret many of the laws, especially laws of sacrifice. You can't sacrifice if there's not a temple. And basically, what you have, and we saw this in the Gospel of Luke, that there's the written law and then there's the oral law. And the oral law was followed by the Pharisees, and the written law, well, the oral law and the written law by the Pharisees, and the Sadducees followed only the written law and rejected the oral law. And the oral law is believed that there's a written law that God gave on Sinai, but there was an oral law that was given to Moses, and that law was passed down from Moses unto what you'd call maybe the sages or the teachers, or as the New Testament calls them, the elders, passed down this oral law to the day. And within this oral law, this was written down into the rabbinic text that you'll have after the Second Temple was destroyed. It's interesting with these rabbinic texts is you'll have several hundred years of writing, but a rabbi from 300 years earlier could be argued with 300 years later, and there's literally an open discourse as these things are being discussed. And within that, there's a lot within specifically this law of divorce, because there's some, maybe you could call it ambiguity as far as because he had found some uncleanliness in her in verse number 1. What does that mean? One school of thought, is that some sort of sexual immorality? I don't think that makes a lot of sense because we've already covered that pretty well in chapter, I think it was 22. We clearly covered it, and if there was anything that was sexually immoral about her, she should be stoned, so that wouldn't be it. So I think the more likely understanding of this finding some uncleanliness in her is basically something that you don't like about her. And it could be practical things as far as maybe she can't give children, she's barren, maybe there's some illness that she has or whatever it was. But either way, what you have here is a regulation around divorce. So first of all, in verse number 1, a man is able to divorce his wife really for any reason whatsoever. He just writes a bill of divorcement, gives it to her hand, sends her out of his house. Now, verse number 2, when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be with another man's wife. So she is allowed to be remarried. And if the latter husband hate her or rejects her and writes a bill of divorcement and gives it to her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, so basically if that second marriage ends either by death or by divorce, verse number 4, her former husband which sent her away may not take her again to be his wife. After that she is defiled. For that is an abomination before the Lord, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy God give thee for an inheritance. So what do we have here? We have a law of divorce in which divorcement is allowed, but if you divorce a woman, she marries another man, you may not remarry that woman because this would be considered adulterous. This was not allowed. So that's just the legal framework. Around divorce. I don't think we're going to make it through all of chapter 24. Oh, man. When a man, verse number 5, when a man take a new wife, he shall not go out to war. Neither shall be charged with any business. But he shall be free at home for 1 year, and shall cheer up his wife which he had taken. So here we have a law of marriage. After someone's married, they are not to do business outside the home. And I guess you would maybe look at this, obviously business could be going to a market, going to a job, maybe a trade. Most likely in that time, with a very agricultural society, you would grow everything that you need to live and sustain life. There may be some trade with excess, but typically your work is in the home. So he's not able to basically go out of town on business or to go to war. Now this is interesting in a couple ways. Number one, it's a nice principle. Let the couple remain together. But notice at the end it says, and he shall cheer up his wife which he hath taken. Now think about this, and I want to pose this in the fair treatment idea that we have. If you think about an arranged marriage, all right, if we were to put our mindset into this, and that's most likely what the type of marriage would have happened in ancient Israel. If you had an arranged marriage and you as a lady were betrothed to a man, you were leaving your family and joining him, you didn't really have a say in the matter, I imagine that you wouldn't be necessarily super ecstatic about this. And there might be a few emotions and sadness about leaving your family, and maybe fears and anxieties about joining a new family. And here God wants the man to cheer up his wife. And even in the Old Testament, in the New Testament we have husbands, love your wives. But even in the Old Testament, although it doesn't say for them to love his wife here, you get the idea that we are to take care and nurture the wife. And that is what is required. So here you have that fair treatment seen in verse number 5. Now the second law is a prohibition against stealing. Deuteronomy 24:6, no man shall take neither the upper millstone to pledge, for he hath taken a man's life to pledge. Pledge will come back a little bit later in this chapter. But basically you can't take the upper millstone from a person. You can't require this, you can't steal this, you can't do any of that. Because if you do, you take the man's life. And what you see here is you cannot take what is needed from another to sustain their life. Now, I don't know if we have this as much in our society. We are not grinding, or I think you grind, I don't know, mill your own bread, or I don't know how, I'll have to ask Michelle about that later on. She's raising her hand. She is ready to go. She has a PowerPoint presentation ready, and she will have us set. But you get the idea that there's things you need to create food, to make food, to produce food, to eat, to sustain life. I think we all might have a deep freezer full of food that we will never run hungry of, or a refrigerator or a pantry, or access to groceries. So I don't know if we see this as much today, but you can imagine it in the ancient world. So there's a prohibition as taking, either by stealing or by requiring a pledge. But also in verse number 7, if a man be found stealing any of his brethren's children of Israel and make merchandise of them, sell them, then that thief shall die, that thou put away evil from among you. This is an awful thing that happens. That was loud. Even today, we've seen that. I saw this personally in India when we were there. There's a friend I had, and his family. Most everyone has a family village they can go back to. But in their family village, one of his uncles was kidnapped at a young age. And there's no way of knowing where he went. He was just gone. There's no way to find him. They live in a very agricultural society where he was. He was gone. But what probably happened was something of the sort of human trafficking, putting him into slavery, or what happens a lot in India is they'll take kids and they'll put them on the side of a road to beg for money. And when you give them money, they don't get to keep it. They have to give it to the person who put them out there on the side of the road. It's an awful, awful situation. So you still have some of this happening in our society, but this is a law against that. And if you got caught doing that, it was a law that you would be put to death, killed. So very severe consequences for this atrocious act. Verse number 8, we have dealing with leprosy. Take heed in the plague of leprosy, that thou observe diligently and do according to all the priests and the Levites shall teach you as I command thee, and so shall you observe to do. The first aspect about this, and I'm studying right now ancient medicine, and it's interesting to see how ancient medicine works in societies. But what do you see about medicine here in the nation of Israel is that the priests and Levites were in charge of the public health. They were the ones who decided what would be done. The priests, the Levites would be. And that's really interesting. They were, in a way, a governor. Now, of course, we know that Israel was a theocratic society, not a monarchy, not a democracy, not a republic. None of that. It was a type of theocracy, meaning God was the leader of the nation. And we see as we go on into Joshua and into Judges and even into the Samuel and Chronicles, you see what you'll find is that there were judges, there were priests, there were prophets. Different people were sent to lead the nation of Israel, but each one of them were really serving God and following what God wanted them to do. And here the public health is given to the Levites. Now in verse number 9 it says, remember what the Lord did unto Miriam, by the way, after that you were come after Egypt. No context is given here, but we have found Anne. She is alive. No. Ben will give you context for that later on. But no context is given here in verse number 9, but if you know the story, Miriam, got a little proud and haughty, and she thought she could overstep Moses and his authority, and God inflicted her with leprosy. And there's really no reason why this is given, except for don't forget how proud Miriam was, and God gave it to her. So here we have the laws of leprosy, verse number 8 and 9. Now, verse number 10, we have lending and claiming back. When a man, or when thou dost lend thy brother anything, thou shalt not go into his house to fetch his pledge. Thou shalt stand abroad and the man whom thou dost lend shall bring out the pledge abroad unto thee. So here we have when you lent something to someone, don't go in his house to ask for it back. Stand outside when he asks for it. Now, I don't really know why necessarily. There may be some practical reasons we could infer here. Maybe, I don't know, my neighbor growing up had some stuff they had gotten from Rent-A-Center. If you know what Rent-A-Center is, you can rent appliances or furniture, things like that. Ideally, rent to own. Well, they had stopped paying for that, the things that they had bought from Rent-A-Center, and the Rent-A-Center guy had to come by and collect it. And my neighbor beat him up. The driver, poor guy, just doing his job. He got beat up, the police called, and he was arrested. Now, you can see where this would be problematic in the ancient world if you were to go in somebody's house and say, all right, I'm here to collect what is mine. No, you're not. You're dead. You know, that could be a problem. Standing outside does kind of prevent that a little bit. Also, maybe going inside is threatening. You don't want to threaten a man in his house. Maybe you stay outside. Either way, there's maybe a lot of different ways to look at that, but that's the law. Now he continues, if a man be poor, thou shalt not sleep with his thou shalt not sleep with his pledge, and if in any case thou shalt deliver him the pledge again when the sun goeth down, that he may sleep with his own raiment and bless thee, and shall be righteous unto thee before the Lord. Basically, in desert times or in desert climates, what you'll find is that the temperature drops rather radically at night. Same too as it does in October of this year, right? And in the daytime, it's nice outside. Maybe you're wearing a short sleeve t-shirt. But I can tell you from experience, when you sleep outside at this time of year, you're going to wake up a little cold. I did Friday night. Thankfully, I had a blanket. Now, imagine if you were in this situation and you're requesting it back. Well, if he doesn't have anything else, well, go ahead and give it to him at night so he can be warm during the evening. So once again, you see a fair treatment. That's one thing I want to stress in this chapter is this fair treatment. Verse number 14, thou shalt not oppress an hired servant that is poor and needy, whether he be of thy brethren or the strangers in the land within thy gates. Thou shalt give him his hire, neither shalt the sun go down upon it, for he is poor and setteth his heart upon it, lest he cry against the Lord, and it be sent unto thee. Now, this is different than a slave. A hired servant is an employee. It could be maybe a sort of an indentured servant, but more likely an employee that you have hired to do work for you. What are you not supposed to do? Treat your employees poorly. It's unfortunate the amount of employers that don't care about their employees. And I'm sure many people in here have worked for someone or worked for a company that you knew they don't care anything about you. They just want to get what they can out of you, and when they're done with you, you move on, they move on, they don't care about you at all. Now, for God, He wanted the nation of Israel to treat their employees well. Don't hold back His pay. Pay Him what He's worth. And if you do hold back His pay, and he does cry against the Lord, it's going to be a sin to you. So treat your employees well. Verse number 16, we have a solo law. The fathers shall not be put to death for the children, neither do the children be put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. This is it. Don't get mad at me for something my kids do. And don't get mad at my kids for something I do, right? I say that jokingly, but that's exactly what the law is saying. You can't kill a father for what his children have done, and you can't kill children for what a father's done. Now, one of the things that we have in the Bible is we have this law in constant, opposition. We find there's a lot of cases that you find death being required of a children for sin of the father. But there is one case in 2 Kings 14:6 where King Amaziah, it says, but the children of the murderers he slew not. according to that which is written in the book of the law of Moses, wherein the Lord commanded, saying, the father shall not be put to death for the children, nor the children be put to death for the father, but every man shall be put to death for his own sin. So while we do see it maybe a little bit in flux in how it's treated, and there's several cases, and we could go into each and every one of them. There's a case with David. There's cases throughout the Old Testament, maybe even some New Testament ideas that we could look at. There's a lot of debates and arguments about what they mean and how they're not breaking this covenant. But what we do find is that this is followed, at least by King Amaziah. The last law, laws for fair treatment for foreigners, fatherless, and widows. Now, just as we said in verse number 14, I forgot to highlight this. What is a stranger? A stranger is a non-native alien. So the nation of Israel, it could be an Egyptian. It could be a Greek. It could be somebody from Mesopotamia. It could be somebody from one of the Transjordanian tribes or whatever. It's basically a non-Israelite who's living in Israel. So in here you have three different groups of people. Don't pervert the judgment of the stranger, the fatherless, or take the widow's raiment to pledge. So there's three groups of people. You have the stranger or foreigner, the fatherless, the orphans, and the widow. And what he's asking or mandating is to not treat them unfairly. Don't take what they have. These would be the ones that are kind of down and out. Why? Because you need to remember you're a bondman in Egypt. The Lord has redeemed you from thence. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. When thou cuttest down, this is what I want you to do. Because you were a stranger in the land, so now I want you to do this. Verse number 19, when you cut down thine harvest in the field, thou hast forgot a sheaf in the field, thou shalt not go again to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger and the fatherless and the widow, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thy hands. When thou beatest thine olive tree, thou shalt not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When thou gatherest grapes of the vineyard, thou shalt not glean it afterwards. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in the land of Egypt. Therefore, I command thee to do this thing. So what is this saying? What I want you to do is to take care of those that can't take care of themselves. And we see this so wonderfully played out in the book of Ruth. If you know the story of Ruth, she was a Moabitess woman. She was a widow. She went back with, her name's not Mara, Naomi. She says, call me Mara, in the end of chapter number 1. But she went back with Naomi, another widow, and Naomi sent Ruth into Boaz's field. I'm right? Boaz. Yeah, Boaz's field. I wanted to say Haman, but he's a bad guy. So Naomi sent Ruth into Boaz's field to collect some grain during the time of harvest. So this is different than the law we just saw. We just saw a law we just talked about it, where you could go to somebody's field, you could take something to eat, but you can't harvest. Now you're allowed to harvest. That's harvest time. But what are you allowed to harvest? The things that have fallen or the things that got missed. Basically, it's not going to be the best of the best, but if you're poor, needy, you don't have land, you don't have the means to take care of food, you could go in and you can harvest for yourself. But in this case of Ruth, in Ruth 2:16, Boaz says to his servants, and let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them that she may glean them and rebuke her not. So what Boaz wanted to do is, she could pick up the wheat that had fallen down, collect it, harvest it, and use it. But he's like, drop a lot of it for her. I mean, what a guy. He must have really liked her. He's like, that widow, there's something about her. I want to be nice to her. So he has his men drop a lot for her. Now, we don't know if he does this for everyone, or maybe he just had a crush on young Miss Ruth. But either way, it's a beautiful story. They get married in the end. She uncovers his feet and lays by his bed. You can read that later on. Ruth is a phenomenal book. Is anybody who loves the story of Ruth? Every hand should be up right now. It's such a great story. It's good. It's It's a rom-com, right? I don't know about comedy. And it is comedy a little bit. It's a rom-com of the Bible, different genres within the Bible. Go back and read it if you haven't read it in a while. But you see this played out, this giving the handfuls, you don't want to take everything you can for yourself, but you can leave some back for someone else. So here we have the laws of chapter 24. And with that in mind, we'll stand and be dismissed in a word of prayer. Finance Committee, we do have a meeting. I hope someone brought coffee, and we're prepared for this one. We'll see. We'll stand, we'll dismiss in a word of prayer. Jeff, would you close us in prayer?